Today we're counting down the top 10 Oathbreaker cards coming out of the new Murders at Karlov Manor set, and I'm including the Murders at Karlov Manor Commander decks, and Ravnica Clue Edition. We only got one new Planeswalker, and that's a bummer, but we got several new interesting signature spells, as well as just a bunch of cards that might be good in certain decks. Our honorable mention is just too fringe to make the list, but Amzu Swarm's Hunger could be really good in a Grist Insect Tribal build. It gives other insects who control menace, and can synergize with certain graveyard stuff. Now on to the actual list. Number 10 is Prisoner's Dilemma, a sorcery for 3 red. Each opponent secretly chooses Silence or Snitch, then the choices are revealed. If each opponent chose Silence, Prisoner's Dilemma deals 4 damage to each of them. If each opponent chose Snitch, Prisoner's Dilemma deals 8 damage to each of them. Otherwise, Prisoner's Dilemma deals 12 damage to each opponent who chose Silence. If you're looking for a signature spell that can deal a bunch of damage to your opponents, maybe all of your opponents, then this really is good for the mana. How good is the card really though? I don't know. I want it to be good. I like the card so much. I really would like to build around this. It might actually be pretty bad though. Anyways, it made my list at number 10. Coming in at number 9 is Massacre Girl, Known Killer. A 4-mana 4/4 with menace, and creatures you control have Wither, meaning they deal damage to creatures in the form of -1/-1 counters. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, if its toughness was less than 1, draw a card. First off, this works well with an Oathbreaker that gives -X/-X to creatures, although there aren't really many options for that. I think it really shines in a deck where you've chosen a board wipe as signature spell that gives -X/-X, something like Toxic Deluge, so you can kill all the creatures and draw just a whole bunch of cards. I would not build this deck because of Massacre Girl, but if you're building it anyway, this is a great card for it. Number 8 is Corporeal Projection, a sorcery for blue-red. Target creature you control gains Myriad until end of turn, meaning whenever it attacks for each opponent other than the defending player, you may create a token that's a copy of that creature tapped and attacking that player or a planeswalker they control. Exile the tokens at end of combat, and it has Overload for 7, so you can Myriad all your creatures instead. This sounds like a really fun signature spell, really good for a deck that also does ETB stuff. Also, I didn't realize that Myriad tokens could attack planeswalkers. That is a nice bonus in our format. Number 7 is Incinerator of the Guilty, a 6-mana 6/6 dragon with flying and trample. Whenever Incinerator of the Guilty deals combat damage to a player, you may collect evidence X. When you do, Incinerator of the Guilty deals X damage to each creature and each planeswalker that player controls. To collect evidence X, exile cards with total mana value X or greater from your graveyard, and considering this is really the top of the curve for you, this would be a late game thing, you should have something in the graveyard to exile. So if you can get this to hit an opponent, it is gonna be strong. You're probably gonna be able to take out all their creatures and hopefully their planeswalker, and the planeswalker bit is of course the reason I'm mentioning it. That bit doesn't matter much in most formats, but for us, it's nice to have at least 1 or 2 cards in the deck that can deal with an opponent's planeswalker. 6 mana is not the ideal spot for those cards, but it's a good card anyway. And speaking of planeswalker removal, number 6 is Unexplained Absence, an instant for 3 and a white. For each player, exile up to 1 target non-land permanent that player controls. For each permanent exiled this way, its controller cloaks the top card of their library, which means put it onto the battlefield face down as a 2/2 creature with Ward 2. Turn it face up at any time for its mana cost if it's a creature card. So they are getting something back, but you can take out everybody's Oathbreaker with this. And when you've designed your deck around your planeswalker and you need your planeswalker out to cast your signature spell, taking out your opponent's Oathbreakers is brutal. This is one of the most mana efficient ways of taking out everybody's Oathbreaker, but we can of course use it on creatures or artifacts, enchantments, whatever. This would be a solid signature spell or just a card in the deck. Number 5 is Archdruid's Charm, an instant for green. Choose 1, search your library for a creature or land card and reveal it. Put it onto the battlefield tapped if it's a land card, otherwise put it into your hand. Or put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. It deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. Or exile target artifact or enchantment. I do love the versatility of the removal here, but that's not really the reason it's on the list. That first ability of being able to get a land specifically is really good, especially for decks that want to do the Dark Depths Thespian Stage combo. It doesn't even matter that the land comes into play tapped. This card is another signature spell option for the popular Wrenn 6 deck, which does just that. That deck usually uses Crop Rotation, which is Honestly, a better option for sure because of the mana cost, and also because Wrenn and 6 can get back the land you sacrifice, but this is another option for the deck, especially if you don't want to build what is probably the best deck in the format, which I personally don't want to build the best deck in the format. That's not much fun for me. Archdruid's Charm is much more fair, slower game plan on that. Honorable mention to Undergrowth Recon, which also came out on the set, an enchantment for 1 green. At the beginning of your upkeep, return target land card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. This is just another option for those types of decks. Number 4 is Final Word Phantom. For 2 and a blue, it's a 1/4 with flash and flying, and during each opponent's end step, you may cast spells as though they had flash. That includes your planeswalker or sorcery speed signature spells. Now, that's not as good as just giving it flash. This is an end step flash, but it's still good. I think it'd be especially good in a deck that wants to cast its signature spell even more than its planeswalker, so you can flash out your planeswalker on your last opponent's end step, and then on your turn you can cast the signature spell. This makes it so they can't attack your planeswalker. Number 3 is Lavinia, Foil to Conspiracy. For 1 white-blue hybrid, it's a 2/3 with vigilance. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, investigate. Tap, add colorless, activate only on an opponent's turn. This is really good ramp for the color, wow. It seems perfect for a deck with a higher mana value signature spell that is an instant. And the card draw is a nice bonus too. Number 2 is Tomic, Wielder of the Law. For 1 white-black, it's a 2/4 with affinity for planeswalkers, so it costs 1 less to cast for each planeswalker you control. Flying Vigilance, whenever an opponent attacks with creatures, if 2 or more of those creatures are attacking you and or planeswalkers you control, that opponent loses 3 life and you draw a card. This is pretty good at 3 mana, but if you have your Oathbreaker out, it's only 2 mana, and that is a dang good rate. Because Oathbreaker is a 20 life format, that 3 damage does mean a bit more here than Commander, so sometimes this will discourage them from attacking you with more than 1 creature, or maybe more importantly, from attacking your planeswalker with more than 1 creature. But if they do, you still get to draw a card. I love this card. This seems really good. It's not particularly synergistic, it's kind of just a good stuff card, but sometimes that's alright. And number 1, because I had to put the planeswalker as number 1, of course, Kaya Spirit's Justice. For 2 white-black, she starts at 3 loyalty. Whenever 1 or more creatures you control and or creature cards in your graveyard are put into exile, you may choose a creature card from among them. Until end of turn, target token you control becomes a copy of it, except it has flying. +2, surveil 2, then exile a card from a graveyard. +1, create a 1/1 white and black spirit creature token with flying. -2, exile target creature you control. For each other player, exile up to 1 target creature that player controls. Yeah, this card is probably competing for the planeswalker with the most text on it. Wow, this is a pretty unique card, and it would build a very unique Oathbreaker deck. I love that her plus and minus abilities synergize with her static ability. There's quite a few good options we could pick for signature spell, but I made a whole video on that, so if that sounds interesting to you, click here. As always, thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you next time.